one once they've applied for a building permit with the county, so it's not, I'm gonna start building, and then they end up being there for a year or something. They've got to show, so they're gonna follow through. And then once they get a CO, that has to be disconnected, it can't be, has to be disconnected from sewer and water. It can still be stored, but can't be used for the residents after that. Recommend only a 1-year permit and with only one extension of 6 months, so 18 months. And ordinance review, we looked at it for about 2 months, ordinance review. And this is a text from another county that we tweaked, so it's not we didn't start from scratch.
Ms. Lane.
I talked with Justin earlier today because I was concerned that, it sounds like that there is some demand for this, but I don't see how it benefits the town of Franklin. We would, in fact, probably come up with a fee, but whether or not that fee would cover the expenses of coming up with a process, coming up with a way to review it, then following through to be sure that they were out in a year or a year and a half. And so I could see how it would benefit the person that wanted to do it, but we also have places in town and in the county where they can use their mobile home, not mobile home, that's not what it is, their recreational vehicle. And I asked Justin about that, and he said nobody had ever called back and said, well, I can't find a place with an RV. So I'm just hesitant that this is an issue that's going to cause neighbors to be concerned that they've got this RV next door while somebody's building on their house, and that was my concern. And I didn't think about, I didn't want us to send it on to the planning board if we hadn't discussed it in some way that we could get some more information. So those are my concerns.
So the recommendation in the consent agenda is to refer this to the planning board for further review. And is there an issue with that?
Well, it's their time and their energy to review it, and then it come back to us. And I thought maybe if we wanted to discuss, if anybody else wanted to discuss it any tonight, that we could do that. I appreciate the planning board, all their time and energy they put into stuff that we send to them. And I thought if we had concerns that it'd be good to mention them tonight, perhaps.
I don't think there's enough just consensus against it, Rita, that we would just short circuit it and put it on hold or whatever. I don't sense that. If there is, I'd like to hear it, but it would probably make sense to run it through the planning board, knowing that it would come back to us, and we don't always accept their recommendations. But it doesn't seem to be unanimously around here that we just don't want it. We may not know enough yet, Rita.
But there's no way for us, how will we know more after the planning board other than our co-citizens think it's a good idea? That is something, that the ordinance review committee has thought it was a good idea, and then as a planning board, so that is information that we can use.
And some of the discussion we've had about it has been, it is featured in other districts and other towns. Zoning allows for it, so that, if somebody comes to you and says, well, I bought this piece of property already, and while I'm building or while I'm rebuilding or something, I ought to be able to use it, and don't maybe go pay rent somewhere else on an RV lot while I do that for a limited period of time. As long as we put brackets on the time, we felt pretty good about that. I would say something else we could look into is asking those other cities that have something similar to that, whether they have concerns with anything about the way it's been administered or if it's been a difficulty. I think Justin looked into that some and didn't hear a whole lot of, pushback from anybody saying, yeah, we did it, but y'all don't do that. It's been, headaches for us. But we can look into that.
God forbid we have a 100-year event where something happens to several houses, and we say, sorry, you can't do that while you're rebuilding your house. We don't have that in our toolbox. So, you just never know. Somebody's house could get flooded, burned down, or whatever. So, anyhow, I have no problem with the planning board looking at it.
I would appreciate if you look into it and see if they say it's a huge staff time eater and what their fees are. I mean, I know you're gonna try to figure out how much time it takes and then do the fee accordingly.
Well, the ones I found doing a search, those towns and counties, I can reach out to.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr.?
I was just gonna make a motion to send to the planning board.
Mr. Coker makes a motion to refer this text amendment to the planning board for their review, and it'll later come back to the town board for final action. Is there a second to Mr. Culpepper's motion? Mr. Guffey seconds it. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign? That motion carries. Thank you for that explanation and that detail. At this time, we'd like to recognize some folks to introduce some new members of their team. So I'd like to ask Kyle Paquette to come forward with an introduction.
Good evening. We do have a new hire at the water plant, Blake Gibson. He was unable to make it, but I'm glad to have him, and he's really hit the ground running for us.
Tell them we're glad to have him.
All right, thank you.
Blake Gibson is his name, so if you see that name, you'll know where he's supposed to be, and
Jay's boy, is it?
tell him congratulations for being part of our team here at Franklin. So next, I'd like to ask Jason Hopkins to come forward for a recognition.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. First, I want to recognize Jake Slagle. He's been with us 5 years now. 5 years is kind of a magic number in wastewater. It's a difficult field. You take hazardous water and you turn it into river water. A lot of science to it. So about 5 years is kind of the minimum to really get the grip of what's going on. So we look for big things out of Jake. You can come on up, Jake. I'm just going to talk like you walk. But we're glad to have him, and I look for big things. If me and Mr. Allen fell off the planet today, I think Jake could have just step in and take over. Thank you, Jake.
Welcome aboard, Jake. Glad to have you with us. Congratulations.
5 years.
Secondly is Mr. Bill Allen. He couldn't make it tonight. I believe he's actually one of the longest tenured town employees. There might be one or two that's been here longer, but he's going on 29 years. We're really glad to have him. He's a great asset. Knowledge in this field is everything. I'm trying to talk him into staying 10 more. He said he might give me 5. But he got his maintenance 1, and it paid off day 1. We had a machine go down, and day 1 he stepped in and was able to give us information that we might not have had. So I appreciate Mr. Allen and everything he's done.
Tell Mr. Allen we appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
This time I'd like to recognize Kelly Gooderham, Senior Manager CPA with Martin Starnes and Associate, to present our annual audit report.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kelly Gooderham, the Senior Audit Manager with Martin Starnes and Associates. We've prepared the following PowerPoint to present what we feel to be some of the more pertinent topics of the town's fiscal year 23 audit. We have issued a clean, unmodified opinion, which means that we found the financial statements to be fairly presented in all material respects to the reader. Your report has been submitted to the LGC and accepted with no comments. Additionally, it is always a great pleasure to work with the Finance Department during the course of the audit, who are always very helpful and enjoy to work with. So first we'll go through a 3-year comparison of the general fund balance. As you can see, your fund balance increased roughly 2.2 million or 37%, which was primarily due to an increase in your restricted and unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, as well as investment earnings. So this is a calculation utilized by the LGC to compare units across the state. Your available fund balance, we start with your total fund balance of 8.2 million, less your stabilization by state statute of 718,000, to arrive at a total available fund balance of 7.4 million, which was an overall increase over the prior year of 2 million, which was primarily due to that previously mentioned overall increase in fund balance. Another calculation utilized by the LGC is your available fund balance as a percentage of expenditures within general fund. As you can see, it increased roughly 34% over the prior year. Typically, 8% represents 1 month's worth of supply of expenditures on hand. So at 147%, the town had roughly 18 months worth of expenditures on hand. Now we'll go through your top 3 general fund revenues and expenditures. First, we have your ad valorem tax revenues, which increased roughly $264,000 or 11%, which was due to an increase in collections and credits over the prior year. Your unrestricted intergovernmental increased $319,000 or 17%, which was primarily due to an increase in your local option sales tax distributions from the state. Other taxes and licenses, which includes fire tax and vehicle rental tax, overall increase of $271,000 or 28%, which was due to an increase in your fire tax revenue. General government expenditures increased around $293,000 or 25%, which was due to an increase in governing body expenditures for operating and capital outlay purchases. Public safety expenditures decreased roughly $7,000 or 1%, which is considered comparable to the prior year. Transportation expenditures decreased $113,000 or 21%, which was primarily due to a decrease in your capital outlay purchases over the prior year. So now we'll go over some water sewer figures. Operating revenues increased around $8,000. Operating expenditures decreased around $109,000. Your debt service expenditures remain comparable at an overall increase of $33,000. And then your operating income at 6/30/23 was $1.4 million. And then your unrestricted net position increased $937,000. So a few years back, LGC started requiring certain information to be presented to the board for each audit. This information comes directly from the LGC's data input sheet, which is prepared and sent with the town's audit each year to the LGC. This is your quick ratio for the water sewer fund. The LGC is normally concerned with a quick ratio of less than 1, which basically means the entity does not have enough cash on hand to pay current bills. So at 8.4, the town's looking favorable in the LGC's eyes. Some additional information that comes from the LGC's data input sheet. We noted a timely audit submission. We noted a stable property tax valuation and collection percentage. And then your water sewer net income and cash to expense ratio were favorable. We also noted a material weakness finding for material audit adjustments. A response to the LGC is required within 60 days of this audit presentation, which Sarah will gladly help with that. Are there any questions?
We're doing okay? We're doing okay?
You okay?
Good job. I think we appreciate, most people don't realize how hard it is to get an auditor who's capable of doing a municipal or local government audit these days. I talk to folks across the state and they're really having trouble finding somebody. And so I'm afraid to refer you to them because I don't want to overload you and lose our connection here. But
No worries on that.
But we're in very sound financial position here with the town, thanks to our efficient finance department and our town manager. Maximizing revenues and controlling expenditures has left us in really strong financial position. We appreciate you all doing that, and we really appreciate you getting the audit in on time. There are places in this state who are 2 years behind on getting their audits in. So thank you for that. Does anybody have a question?
What's the undesignated fund balance now as a percentage of our budget? What are we at on that?
It was 147.
147, I think.
147.
Okay, if there are no questions, thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Item number 7 is public session. Do we have anyone signed up to speak in public session? If not, we'll move to item 8, which is a public hearing to receive public input on proposed zonings, and I'd recognize our town planner, Mr. Justin Setzer, at this time.
All right, good evening again, Town Council and Mayor. Before you tonight, this is the rezoning request that we brought before you a few months back, and we had some residents had some questions and some concerns, and you sent it back to the planning board. They looked over it for a few months and made some changes, made some tweaks, and I'm gonna go over those with you. Also, while some of those property owners are here tonight, so they can see those. As a quick overview, though, the rezoning is 110, the proposed zoning is 110 parcels, 154 acres. Currently, everything is zoned C2 in the rezoning. So everything from Sloan Road to the end of the ETJ is zoned C2 commercial. And I'm gonna pull up some pictures right quick. Bear with me. Oops, I put it in the right thumb drive.
I don't think.
Okay, so the proposed rezoning is, here you can see everything that's highlighted in blue is what was proposed. This is the map that everybody received. It had more of an aerial so you could see some references to houses and so on. I'm gonna point out a few. These are the same ones I pointed out before we set the hearing to the council. There was one here right at the end. I believe this is one Mr. Ammons owns. He had concern about it going from commercial because he was wanting to, this is one about, he was wanting to do some storage units. Planning board changed that, recommended changing that back to, or not rezoning it in a sense, leaving it commercial, and the one adjoining it. We had another one right here that bordered the sawmill. I forget his name.
Timothy Cochran.
Timothy Cochran. He concerned because of his business that he has there. They recommended changing it to neighborhood mixed use, which would still be an allowed use. It's kind of in between full commercial and residential. It allows for personal use, personal businesses. That would still be compliant with that same type of business now. And then the other one, let me slide over, was Mr. Green's, and they recommend leaving it commercial as well, which is this one. So these, two of those would since be not rezoned and one would be switched to mixed use. And then today, I had Jerry and Miss Patricia Green come and visit with me for a little while. They own 3 parcels right here off of Wallace Branch and Old Murphy Road. We're recommending R1, and they said they would like, for some future use, they would like that to be R2. Planning board has not reviewed that. I don't see an issue with that going to R2. So there's that. That's the only other one that I've been brought to. I've had some call and I've talked to. I gave you Amy, who has signed up to speak. But I wanted to go over those before we went into the public hearing, or the hearing of everybody else. In the package, you have the standard consistency statement. You've got a list of all the parcels, a staff report, and the findings of fact, and the consistency work sheet with the questions that the planning board answered. Any questions for me before we turn it over to the public?
To make those 3 parcels R2 instead of R1, you just need that to be part of the motion, right?
Yeah, you just make it part of the motion, and I would think, it's pretty, I'm gonna say, the difference between R1 and R2 is R2 allows manufactured homes and R1 doesn't. They have a will of maybe wanting to put some manufactured homes in the future. And it's not a drastic change.
The surrounding homeowners not need to be notified of that though before we voted on it?
That's, you can wait, that's up to you if you want, you can make a
If we're gonna do
change.
spur of the moment, I don't want to spring anything, but I'd rather them know about it before that's just my opinion.
Which ones are those again? Point them out, please, Jake.
You can see on the map, it's this piece off of Wallace Branch, and then this long
Okay.
skinny piece, and this other little piece right here.
Property owners have requested that be changed from R1 to R2.
Yeah, where it's, obviously currently it's commercial like everything else, but to go to R2 and not R1.
Good. We have 3 people signed up to speak at the public hearing. The first one is Mr. Bob Henry.
Good evening. My name's Bob Henry. I live on Old Murphy Road, and all I want to say is I'm in agreement with the rezoning. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Carson Green.
After hearing Mr. Setzer, I think I'm good and I don't need to speak anymore.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. Our third speaker is Johnny Ammons.
I'm good. I just had a question, so he answered it.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak that hasn't spoken, that didn't sign up for this input session? Sir?
Yes.
If you'd come forward and give us your name.
Sure. My name is Chris Green. I own 2 of the parcels in question. I own 5. One is, the address is 52 Waldrop Road. It's 1.73 acres with a single wide mobile home. And the other is 5.45 vacant acres that borders the Old Murphy Road and Waldrop Road. Both, I purchased the 5.45 acres in 2016, the 1.73 in 2018. When I purchased the land, they were both zoned secondary commercial as they are now. I bought this property in good faith under the knowledge that if I did decide to sell it, that being able to sell it to someone of commercial use would be an option. So I, as someone who was not represented by the town because I'm not able to vote inside town limits, I just don't feel that it's fair that I'm able to have my property rezoned when I have no redress and I'm not able to vote for this. I was unable to attend the previous meeting because I was in a terrible accident involving a tree, so I was unable to be here. But I don't think that it's fair if for people that are not, that have no redress and that can't vote for being able to be their property restricted. If you guys were expanding to allow more economic opportunity for someone that has bought the property, that would be different. But to take, to restrict it more and to damage their investment when they don't have redress, I feel is unfair. And so I am opposed to this specifically for my 2 parcels, but in general, because I just don't feel that it's fair when we have no redress, we're not able to vote. So I don't think it's fair that you can legislate us.
Are all 2 of your parcels, both of them are slated to be R1, is that?
One of them is in, I believe, because it has a single lot on it right now, is slated to be R2.
So is that your parcel that's just north of that? Yes. That one, okay, those 2. Both of those are commercial.
Yeah, everything, it's my understanding, everything is commercial right now that is potentially being rezoned. And that's the way that people bought it. So, and I bought it with that in mind, that if I did need to sell it, that would be an option. And you guys are about, if you vote for this, you're taking that off the table. And I just don't find that to be fair.
Mr. Setzer, has the planning board been made aware of this situation?
This is news. This is the first time I've heard of this one.
Did you realize you could have spoken with Justin Setzer,
I
or?
did not. No, and like I said, I was not able to be at the
Right.
last meeting because of medical issues. But I am here now, so it's my opinion. So I'd be happy to answer more questions if you have.
Do you have anything else to add?
I don't know unless you have other questions.
Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering
If you could, if you want to speak, I'll ask you to come to the podium or give us your name, so we'll have it for the record. We don't want to misidentify you.
Okay, my name is Kate Dunn, and I live next to Bob. And the property is the old Oak Hill Inn Bed and Breakfast, and I call it McTurnan Manor, but my question is, I'm here because I was interested in having it zoned multi, because it's currently zoned commercial, which I can't get financing at a competitive interest rate, and that's not really how the property is going to be used if I'm living there. It would be more apropos to call it multi-use, but my question with respect to the last speaker would be, if it is zoned multi, wouldn't that enable more possibilities for the property rather than restrict it? That's all.
I can't answer that question, perhaps Mr. Setzer can.
So, yeah, her piece is, we've got it listed as recommended for residential, which is allowed in residential bed and breakfast. And, so that's what those are. But, yeah, if you have more uses, if something's zoned commercial, then obviously if it's residential. It's kind of like you get more options on a car. If you're residential, it's like the base model. Commercial, you've got leather seats and heated seats and all. You've just got more options. So yeah, it is something you wouldn't have as many options if it was when you're rezoned. But like I said, we were looking, this whole thing was looking at, through our comp plan, was looking at making stuff compatible with what the current uses are. We don't know of what anybody's intentions is if they don't tell us.
So the goal in this massive rezoning was to try to zone it based on what its current use is.
Yeah.
And that's the
Current
way.
use and protect the current uses that are there, so you don't see wide variety of change of neighborhoods for people that's lived out there for 50, 60 years, and then you've got, because when you get commercial, like I said, you get everything in that commercial, you get everything. You can't, that's, we're talking about conditional zoning a little later on. And right now, you've got the wide gamut of C2, which is almost everything minus C3 in industrial. You're almost at the top. So, and there was one commercial business that went in out there and it upset a lot of the community. It kind of really kick-started a lot of this. They got a lot more traffic and changed their views and wasn't very happy. And then another gambit like with Bob and Kate, you know, with the financing where they're trying to refinance their homes and they can't because they're commercial. Banks are making them get commercial loans instead of residential loans. So, I mean, there's a wide variety of things that we're trying to address with this.
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Setzer, or is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm not talking. I've got a question.
Yes, sir. Could you give us your name?
You want me to come over here, just here?
Well, if you could speak in the microphone, we'll pick it up on the recording better.
I'm Lee Garner, and I'm lost a little bit because I don't know what I need to be doing, but I've got a piece of property off of Homer Drive, across the street from Justin's. He probably knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, the thing that I'm looking at on this, I don't know how it's going to be the adjoining property that I own that's not in on this. I've got a mobile home on it. Some point in time, I know I'd like to put a mobile home on this piece of property. I don't know. It is highway frontage. I hope to be commercial, but I don't want it to be, at least I'd be able to put a mobile home on it if I so chose, especially being the adjoining property that I own already got around it. I don't think it would bother my neighbor across the road here. Anyway, that's my question.
You want to do my talk?
Yeah. Yeah, this one right here.
Oh, this one here is.
Yeah, these two here. Yeah, this one right here, and this one right here.
Yeah, so that one he's talking about is this large one right here. It's vacant, just wooded. Right?
Yeah, it's
just vacant wooded. It's, we've got an R1 because of how the other ones were around it. So that wouldn't allow manufactured homes, so that would be something to consider.
I would like to be able to in the event, because like I say, I already got the other one in there. Not want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak public hearing before we close? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question?
Please.
I'm sorry, I just was curious if the other places that are zoned R1 have sewer access. Like if that was taken into consideration.
Roughly nothing has sewer access out there because there's a force main that comes from all the way through there, so really nothing has sewer access, which is going to limit any commercial activity in the future. They do, it will have to be on septic. The large campground that went in, it's on a septic system, it's not on sewer.
Okay. I was just curious because, again, it seems that if we're not open to have access to town services, it's just all the more reason not to put restrictions on someone's property that doesn't have access to town services.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Appreciate your input. And we'll ask the town council if they have questions concerning this public hearing and this input for Mr. Setzer. Anybody have any questions?
I'll be honest, and some people may argue with me that they're two separate issues, but in principle, I don't think they are, and I think Mr. Green makes a good point about no about sewer access there. Now, you can say that's two separate issues all day long, but in principle, I don't think it is. To me, I don't know why we would even bother with this section until there is access to sewer system down through there. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Culpepper.
I think this is the exact example of why the state tried to take our ability to zone the ETJ away from us. And I don't know where that legislation is now. Did that get killed?
Killed.
So for you in the audience, the state right now is looking at taking away our ability to control zoning in the ETJ in which this property is. And I think this is exactly why they want to take our ability away, because landowners in this section bought land with a bundle of rights, and we're trying to take away one of those bundles, one of those rights out of that bundle without compensation. And it's not fair. I mean, the reason why zoning is a sensitive issue is because people base their future plans on it. They base their kids' education on it, whether or not they can afford to send their kids to college. They base their retirement on it, how they're going to live in retirement. And it's a sensitive issue because it is a sensitive issue. And we're already doing some Olympic level maneuvering to try to appease people who have wanted it to be changed, and we're just going to end up with a map that's worse than it was to start with. I've got more, but I'll stop there if anybody else wants to talk.
Let me ask this question. One of the things that I think the planning board and the town board want to do is make sure that we are in concert with our comprehensive plan. Is that correct? Our comp plan?
Yeah, that was
Now,
comprehensive plan recommended. looking at the area.
by these rezonings, did the planning board try to maintain the guidelines in the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, it's, and I have the map, the future land use map, in here as well. That shows what, a lot of it's, it's mostly recommended for residential and a little bit of some commercial around Louisa. So we're tweaking that with some of the mixed use and some of the other commercial is what our comprehensive plan recommended.
I have something to add. It's actually one of my notes here. I was in the comp plan. I was one of the people that was involved in it. And we had a big table right here, and there was a bunch of us, and there was a big screen right here. And we were going over this, and me being me, I kept asking, well, what about that parcel because it's got a garage on it? And what about that parcel because it's a sawmill? And what about that parcel? And it was getting long in the tooth. It was getting to where we're going parcel by parcel, and they're like, we're not going to go parcel by parcel. I mean, that specifically the guys that wrote the comp plan said that we don't have time to go parcel by parcel. So while I understand we want to make things look like our comp plan, what's on the ground and what is these people's planned with their land is more important than our comp plan, especially considering we didn't take the time during those meetings to go parcel by parcel. Like, we didn't. It was explicitly said, we don't have time to go parcel to parcel. This is a wash and an idea of what we want the future land use to be. It was not written in stone. It was not meant to be law. It was meant to be a guideline of what we would like it to be. But that's not what it is. So while I'd like the comp plan and I want to follow it, it's not as important as people's lives.
Justin, what was it that you said about that some people had come to you and wanted more restrictions? Was that the genesis of it, or was it the comp plan, or
Some are
both?
happy to not see it go full commercial everywhere because.
You mean not, but it is already?
It already is,
Yeah,
but they're
okay.
worried that it's their way of life, that it's gonna be upended because somebody tomorrow could buy a piece of property, any of those properties. They could buy any of them and could turn it into a mechanic shop, or, you could turn it into just anything commercial you can think of that's allowed in C2, C1. And you got people zoning's also about protection of people's rights as well. It's not just about letting you do everything you want with your land. It's also about protection of what's there. It's twofold.
The thing I would mention as well is that if these rezonings are put in place, there's also always the possibility at some point in time, it can be rezoned, correct? If it warrants being rezoned to whatever particular purpose that is. So it's not, if this plan is approved by the board, whatever is on here now may not be exactly the way it's gonna be in 5 or 10 years from now, because things may change, and it may be necessary to approve a rezoning request for a particular piece of property because of the attributes for whatever its use, best and highest use is. So, I just wanted to say that just because you approve this plan, if it's approved, doesn't mean that it'll be that way from now on.
I got two questions there. Justin said anybody could put in a mechanic shop. It's to my knowledge that you have to take a permit out now and get approval before anything is built. Is that correct?
Yeah, building.
That you just can't go build a
Hey,
mechanic
Jack.
shop. You have to take out a permit and it has to go before the planning board
Yeah.
and be approved, correct?
For a building permit, that's completely two separate things.
But you'd have to take a building permit to put in a mechanic shop.
Yeah.
So you just cannot go put in a mechanic shop, you have to apply for a building permit, and it has to go through the zoning board, planning board.
No.
approve.
No, you can't build anything unless you get a permit from the building inspections department, so.
Before you're issued a
So
building permit.
it just depends on, if you go with a piece of property that's not even included in this zoning plan, and you want to build something on that, whether it's commercial or residential or whatever, the first thing you got to do, if it's in a zoning jurisdiction, you got to find out what's allowed in that. And then if what you want to do is not allowed in that, you have the option of asking to have it rezoned. But they will not issue you a permit until it complies with whoever zoning authorization is required. We're not going to try to go back and forth, but Justin will be glad to answer any questions you all have after this meeting. He'll be available, and he has much more knowledge about it than I do. I'm not sure, maybe more than this board does, because he works in it every day. Is there anything else that the board would like to bring up in discussion of this matter at this time?
One thing, and maybe this is, I'm sure some people disagree with this too. We've had a lot of discussions about where we should and shouldn't allow mobile homes in our zoning ordinance. And, you know, I look at places like this and the couple who were talking about their parcels out here. You know, I wish things were different, but in a lot of cases, it's really the only choice for people who need a place to rent, need a place to live. And I think we ought to make sure that we make room for mobile homes.
And I will point out, mobile homes are not allowed in C2. So the mobile homes that are in there right now, if there was a fire, they can't go back. But if we make it R2, then they're compatible and go back.
But that leads me to another question then. And just looking at that, I mean, most of the parcels, the proposal is to take them to R1, is that correct?
Yeah, and that was based off what type of homes were there. But a lot of that up on, a lot of this up on Waldrop Road and Byron Waldrop, and some of these over here off Airwood, and you'll see where the dark yellow, those are where your mobile homes currently are.
Ms. Lane, you have a question or a comment?
Of the people who came last time and were concerned about the way there's, you know, what impact it would have, was there anybody that didn't get what they asked the planning board for?
The only one that asked was three, it was Mr. Green, Mr. Evans, and Tim, and I know they were fine. Tim, I don't know if Tim's fine or not yet, it said, but those were the only three, but now we have some different ones this time.
And there may very well people that don't know.
Right.
I mean, vacant land, people don't always pay attention to letters that come in the mail or whatever it is. I'll add one more. Go ahead, Stace, if you want to.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm with you that overall, there's a lot of parcels out there that don't need to be commercial. But if we have people that are asking about their individual parcels, and we've gone back and we've worked on them, even if we have new people coming, we ought to take a look at it, I think. That's just my opinion.
I was gonna say that we're relatively hemmed in Macon County with commercial property. There's not that much flat land, and what is flat outside of the town limits is usually floodplain, and that's the most regulated floodplain in the entire state of North Carolina, and so it's really hard to do anything there. So we already have limited commercial. Now, if this was somewhere on the bypass or Hamburger Hill, we'd be licking our chops. We'd probably give them a damn loan to build commercial stuff. But for whatever reason, like, why are we dogging small people about commercial stuff? Like I said, if this was a corporation coming in here, we'd bend over backwards to rezone something for them. Like, these are our people, and this is commercial because there's a quarry there, there's an asphalt plant there, there's an industrial park out there. Like, there's a reason why this was commercial to begin with. Like, you need little pockets of commercial activity so that you don't have urban sprawl like Hamburger Hill or what the bypass is becoming. I mean, that's where congested commercial is. You need some neighborhood stuff happening over there. It probably doesn't need to all be commercial, but I'm totally uncomfortable with just taking it away from people because it already is commercial without compensation or working on it for much longer.
And I don't agree with you that anybody's trying to attack small people here, including the planning board or Justin. I think they did this in good faith, but I do agree that we need to look at the individual parcels where people had plans before this came up.
I do too.
And had an expectation of the property they bought, the way it was zoned. And I think you're doing a service to the smaller folks when you take the time to go through and look at it parcel by parcel.
And that sounds like what you didn't have time, or you said you didn't have time to do.
In the comp plan.
In the comp plan, which is an individual approach.
Which, planning board, we've looked at pretty close, we've tried to go parcel to parcel where we can, the ones, especially the ones that's been brought up. We've expanded the industrial for the asphalt plant. This, right now, this little is the only thing industrial for the asphalt plant. They own all this other that's blue, and that was expanded to industrial for them. The sawmill, Troll Sawmill in Leviathan Chapel, yeah, it's zoned commercial now, but the sawmills is allowed in C3. We're expanding it to C3, so it would be compatible. It's not all going down to commercial. We're bringing some things up. It's not, but we've been looking at everything.
Mayor,
Yes.
I see margin 9, call for public hearing. We've had a public hearing. I see margin 10, new business. I don't see this board ready to take action on this matter tonight.
That was going to be my next question, Mr. Collins. Is the board prepared to act on this tonight, or do you need more time?
Not without input from the property owners.
Well, that's needs more time for whatever. I don't see this board ready to make an up or down vote.
Is the consensus on this board to postpone any final action on this until
Just
our
table it.
December meeting?
Just table it until it gets.
Until our December, at least our December meeting.
I see where you're going, Joe, but that doesn't take people out of limbo. I mean, people do lose sleep over this type of stuff, so if we don't want to do this, we should vote it down, or we should vote to send it back to the planning board, or whatever we want to do, but it's not fair for people to go home tonight and be like, well, I have to go to another town council meeting in a month or in 2 months, and I still don't know what's gonna happen with my land. I mean, that's also not fair to people. I mean, we need to do something.
We've had a public hearing, we've had representation. There will not be another need for a public hearing, but, I mean, if we're ready to vote on it tonight, somebody call for it to vote. I just don't see that this board is ready to do it, but if they are, I'm just missing the.
I'll make a comment. I feel like I might be willing to vote on it if we remove these properties in question from these three parties, because I know that's complicated.
And then what if 10 had showed up rather than 3 though? You know,
And the people who don't even know about it or aren't here, I mean, they're not represented, so it's, I'm uncomfortable with excluding anybody that says, hey, I want this, and including somebody that we haven't heard from.
Tell us, Mr. Setzer, what kind of notifications were sent out prior to the public hearing concerning the rezoning of this property to the property owners?
110 parcel owners got a letter in the mail, and there's 6 signs along Old Murphy Road and two, I know a couple more on the Murphy Road, notifying of the date. It's been in the paper twice. I think it's also been mailed twice, because it's been, we had a hearing before. People not knowing about it, I don't think it's a good excuse. It's, we've exceeded what state law is. When you get ones this big, you don't even need to mail everybody individual. You can take out a half page out of the paper, which is probably not as good people seeing it, because you gotta buy the paper and have to get it that week. So we went further in our diligence and making sure people are aware.
So, and what are our options? Vote it up, vote it down, or send it to the planning board?
You can vote it down, you can send it to the planning board again. If you vote it up, I think you've got some decisions to make, because I don't think you I think you're right, Joe, that there's no further notice requirement, and as Justin said, I think you have exceeded the requirements of state law to do anymore. The one that's gonna change, depending on whether you do it or not, from R1 to R2, as Mike says, I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea that you're gonna shift gears midstream and not study what that means. You've got a little island that's out there, and I recognize the uses aren't all that different or less compatible. There's Mr. Garner's request. I'm a little, I don't know whether that's worked in here or not, because it just came up tonight. I'd be a little worried that that's a spot zone, because it takes one piece of property and gives it different rights than all the ones around it that we have zoned.
But he has the right now. Or technically he doesn't, because it's not allowed in commercial.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be, I would want to get my head around whether that makes it a spot zone or not. I mean, you can have a spot zone if you leave something with more rights than everything else around it, which is kind of what it'd be like an inverse spot zone. So, with a lot of appreciation for all the time that Justin spends on this and that your planning board spends on this, and anytime I'm with them, I take pains to say I appreciate how much time you spend in reviewing these things, because it's a pretty thankless job.
Yeah.
I have to say, I feel like your best course is to if you're not of a consensus to vote it down tonight, is to send it back to the planning board for some more study and an opportunity for input from folks that have it to give.
But voting it down doesn't preclude that from happening.
It doesn't, but I mean, it also, voting it down signals to your administration and your planning board that you don't want to study it anymore. You're not asking them to think about it anymore, or to take input and see if this is, which is why to me it feels more like you're asking for more thought and input about whether you want to consider a vote on this maybe next month, and also whether or not, and to your point, David, I'm not sure that some consideration isn't due for what the future land use map here says in the comp. I think it's challenging because it was painted with a real broad brush of, well, this is on a highway, so it must be C2. And I don't know if that's the right call, but, people have bought in some instances in reaction to what it was, that broad brush it was painted with. And so it's a difficult thing to kind of unwind, to rezone to match what we think is the current use. And so I think there's some more study that ought to be done about what the comp plan says about that.
Well, if we wanted to vote this down, but somebody want to change their zoning to a more restrictive zoning, that's pretty easy to do, right? It's easier to go down in zoning and restriction wise than it is to go up. Like it's easier to turn commercial into residential than it is to turn residential into commercial.
Well, the down zoning like you're talking about can only be initiated by the property owner.
But anybody that lives in this area that wants to just be residential could have their property rezoned to residential.
For themselves.
For themselves.
But that's not the limit of the impact that zoning is supposed to look at. It's supposed to trying to match compatible uses around each other, and you can, and it's tricky, because again, generally you can go apply to rezone yourself, but if it would make you a little bitty island in the middle of a sea of otherwise uniformly zoned property, then it's going to be a spot zone. So we can't always do it. But yeah, you can, generally speaking, a property owner can apply to rezoning.
We've had public input at the public hearing. We've had questions. Mr. Setzer's answered as many as he can at this time. What's the pleasure of the board at this time?
Would it be appropriate to make a motion to send this back to the planning board for the purpose of more input from the property owners?
You can make that motion. Is that a motion?
And I'd second it.
We have a motion, Mr. Guffey, seconded by Ms. Celine, to send it back to the planning board for more discussion about these particular properties before the town board votes on approving the rezoning recommendation from the planning board. Is that correct? Anybody have any questions about that?
How are we gonna obtain it?
I can mail 110 people notice of the planning board meeting.
I'll be honest, I don't think that's necessary. I think the people who care are here, and I think they'll know how to get on. They know to get on with you personally. I don't know.
We had nobody come when this was sent back last time.
But they're
Still
here,
made changes.
they're here now.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just go with a net and catch air and say there's no butterflies in the air. I mean, they're here, and they've came more than once. I'd like to see it killed, but I'm only one vote.
We have a
I'm not-
motion, we have a motion and a second to send it back to the planning board. Any other discussion on that motion?
I'd like to say that I wouldn't say that it was the top priority for the planning board. I mean, if you wanted to get input over a longer period of time, that would be fine. I mean, not that it has to come back in December is what I'm trying to spit out.
Well, it just depends on how soon they can take a look at it, if this motion passes.
And in the meanwhile, it's still commercial.
All right.
In the meantime, it's not changed until the board votes.
And then McTiernan woman has a problem, yeah.
You've heard the motion? Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Those opposed by like sign? That motion carries. It'll be returned to the planning board for input on these particular pieces of property and then brought back to the town board for final action. Good? Thank you, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Dear God.
Mr. Setzer, don't leave.
I think this is a pot of stew that ain't cooked yet.
We have a request for another public hearing on Monday, December the 4th, 2023, to get input on the amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance. Mr. Setzer, you want to give us an overview of that?
Yeah, this is the hearing for conditional zoning that we've been reviewing. To adopt it is chapter 152.034, adding it as another tool in the zoning code. This is also what we've been talked about, where somebody could ask for a rezoning instead of we have to worry about they want to go from R1 to C2 commercial. You can do a conditional rezoning, and they can have a rezoning for a certain use they want, and that's only that one use, so you're not worried about they sell it 2 years later and neighborhood's changed again. And this is that text amendment to allow that, to have that where you
Anyone have a question for Mr. Setzer? If not, is there a motion to set the public hearing? Go ahead, Mr. Guffey.
On the language of applicability, where the threshold is 20 or more dwelling units, or commercial or industrial development containing more than 30,000 square feet of interior floor space. That seems a little bit high for a threshold. Because there'll be some, there are developments that are less than that that could have a significant impact, that I think you want some discussion about this board.
Yeah, that was kind of held off of our special use permit, because our intention is, this is probably going to take place over most of our special use permits, and our special use would then be left for the extremely large things, maybe, you can talk about like maybe 100,000 plus square foot buildings, hospitals and, that kind of stuff. And,
So, and as Justin says, that's 30,000 came from that being the kind of the cutoff you had for when you're gonna get into special use before. I don't think there's anything in the world wrong with lowering that sum so that more things come for conditional zoning review here, and you get your hands on and direct input on more things that are significant.
So that's not really statute or
No,
anything?
no, that's just what we had we were following what our threshold we had set previously.
I'll just throw out that I'd like to see 12. If the board agrees on that. 12,000. On the neighborhood compatibility meeting, is that something that council members can attend?
Yes. Yes, it's all legislative, none of this is quasi, so yeah, it's.
One of the great advantages of conditional zoning is, as I've said before, y'all talk to whoever you want to talk to about it. Developers are definitely going to find you and talk to you about it. So, yeah, you could attend those meetings and get the sense of the folks there and, yeah. And I understand the requirements that the developers are required to submit, but I don't see, and maybe this is the way it works, it's wide open, but I don't see anything that, where it says it's approval, we can do approval subject to conditions. I don't see any limits on those conditions, or any sort of guidelines on those conditions. Are those all negotiable with?
Yes, it's all negotiable between, the thing about this, the property owner, or the developer, property owner, and council, you all have to agree. You can't, one person say, I don't want to do that, it can't be approved. So everybody's got to come in agreement for a rezoning to pass.
What's the recourse for, say, there was a board that's not as wise what's the recourse for a developer if he or she says these conditions are not reasonable?
And then they might have to go through a traditional rezoning, or.
So you can, okay, so if you're petitioning for a zoning reason, if you're gonna do development, you've got two paths, traditional rezoning and conditions.
You're more than likely you're more than likely to get a favorable result if you go through the conditional zoning.
More than
depending on the use.
Yeah, because if you're that developer who knows exactly how you're gonna develop it, you can go get a site plan done, you'd rather do a conditional zoning that says, my plan got approved, rather than come here with a traditional rezoning that y'all are all gonna go, what if it's a gas station in 5 years? And what if it's, it takes out that kind of uncertainty in the process.
Is there a motion to call for the public hearing?
I had another comment.
Who did? Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had a few quick comments that I'd sent to y'all in an email, and I think those, at some point in time, you'll look at those. But I'm concerned about how a public hearing, how in the world is the public gonna I went over and over and over this, trying to get the drift of what kinds of things would be expected of people. How will we advertise this?
You still advertise it the same paper, same notices, everybody joining.
But I mean,
for the
public hearing next in December is what I'm talking
Talking about
about.
how do you publicize the public hearing?
And that we've got all this text and.
This is is paper only. You can't, it's paper only, and can't mail it. Surely you wouldn't want me to mail it.
No, I don't, but I just can't, I'm trying to think of how the public would know. I mean, this is a pretty big change, it's probably,
It is, but I feel like what the public needs to know about it is that it's, when you put it into practice is when they need to know about it. You're gonna have folks come to you and say, I'm worried about this development going in here, and you'll be able to say, I understand, let's talk about what, conditions you might like to see. If we got a bigger buffer here, would you feel better about it if we said a walking trail here?
And if they don't like it, they just go the conventional route.
Right.
If you don't disagree with conditional zoning, then go the conventional route.
I'm talking about the public, but they would have a chance for input. I mean,
Yeah, we'll have
Oh, yeah.
for the text amendment, yeah, there'll be a public input.
Yeah.
Hearing for it, just like.
It's not like we're changing it, we're just adding another avenue.
Just give them another
Just another
option.
tool is all it is.
it's a huge avenue, yeah.
Yeah.
And conditional zoning is when the kickbacks start rolling in for us. So we have to refresh our ethics
It's only,
class.
it's only for Mr. Culpepper, I'll make sure that everybody knows that.
Let's-
Okay,
let's go back to-
is there a motion that we set the public hearing for
I've had it
this?
for years.
We have a motion to set the public hearing
Yeah.
for 6:15 or closer thereafter on Monday, December the 4th. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, third.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin, for your amazing patience with us.
Yeah.
I got lots of things.
Don't leave, Justin, we got another item for you.
But wait, there's more.
This is the last one though.
This is a request to award a bid for a project that Justin and Amy have been working on for quite a while concerning our downtown Wi-Fi project. So, Mr. Setzer.
Yeah, so we, over 30 days ago, we sent out an RFP for proposals, trying to get proposals for downtown Wi-Fi. We had it open for 30 days. We received 4. You should in your packet have the bid sheet. All 4 were perfectly capable. Only one, though, came within our budget. And that was Aerolina. They came in about $1,800 under our budget from the funds that we got from the ARC grant and the Dogwood Health Trust helping us with the match. And that is the provider that we would like to go with. I will add, you can see the various price differences. I called some of the references. They provided like 6 or 7. I called the other towns that were in North Carolina. They had some in South Carolina. But I called Banner Elk and Lenore. And both of them one has used them since 2015 for their downtown Wi-Fi. And another one has used them since 2020, and they're all still using them. They didn't have nothing but high praise to say for them. I called another town, left a message that it get returned. West Jefferson, sorry, Lenore's the one that called me. West Jefferson's the other one I called. And they all have a high praise for this company and said they fix things before they even know there was issues.
So you have determined that Aerolina is a responsive bidder who has the low bid, which is within the budget
Yeah, they are
of the
low
grant. Is there a motion concerning the recommendation?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the bid for the downtown Wi-Fi project to Aerolina. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Setzer. Now, Town Manager Owens has a request for approval of a street closing.
What you have before you is the annual Christmas parade sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. This is just their request to do the rolling closure on Sunday, November the 26th, 3 p.m.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign. Thank you. That motion carries. We have a request for consideration of a lease between the town and the Rathskeller space for outdoor dining and food truck on Stewart Street. Town Manager Owens and Attorney Henning will brief us on that.
As part of what we've always been looking for is to consider ways to make Stewart Street more economically viable. Was approached by the owners of the Rathskeller, asking to put in a food truck. Originally, the space they had asked about was down in the public parking area. There was a corner space that did not involve any parking at all, but individuals have to walk down the steps and around. In looking at the property that we have that goes from that parking area up onto Stewart Street, there are 5 parking spaces that are lined out already, but then there's also another additional space where the food truck can actually be sort of parallel from the Rathskeller. The request would be to lease a particular area, much like Root Barrel did for their outdoor dining, so that we have the ability to have that food truck.
Is there an amount that would cost to lease that property?
We have not discussed that amount. I would assume that it would be comparable since it's about the same space size, which would
As
start
the Root Barrel was? Yeah.
Root Barrel started at $100 a month for the first year, then it escalated to $1,500 the second year, $1,800 for the third.
You need a vote or just go with God and
Well, we have to
negotiate?
get a lease agreement and.
Yeah, I have a question. What is this Rathskeller
Adam, would you tell him what, Adam, would you explain to Mr. Govey what the Rathskeller is?
I'll take him down there.
All right.
So was that?
So what we're asking now is to draw up a lease.
If you are amenable to do so.
If the board is considering is considering leasing this property, we need to have a lease for the board to act on. So I guess what we're asking is, are you authorizing the town manager and the attorney to draw up a proposed lease?
We'll likely just put it on your consent agenda for next month.
Do you want a motion though, or no, just a consensus?
We want a motion.
Okay, motion to engage in a lease agreement with the Rathskeller to lease space for a food truck on Stewart Street.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion.
I have one comment. We should look for ways, we should look for some options on Stewart Street to make it easier for people to go between the Rathskeller and this food truck, and maybe some expansion of outdoor dining on Stewart Street, whatever we have to do in terms of some traffic management. Yes.
They want to figure out if it's a street or not too. At some point, you know.
Other discussion? Comments? You ready to vote? All those in favor of the recommendation, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed by like sign. That motion carries. We have change order request for the Clyde Street Waterline Improvement Project. And we'll ask our town manager and our finance director to brief us on that one before the board acts.
Well, I can honestly say this is the first time I've ever been pleased to bring a change order to you. But this was a very proactive, forward-thinking suggestion by Bill Deal when they were up there starting the Clyde Street project to go ahead and just stub out for a tank that will need to be put up there in the future. So we did have to amend the capital project as well, but the total amount was $852.80.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the change order. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed by like sign? That motion carries. Ms. Owens, request for holiday pay for our employees and a budget amendment to coincide with that.
As you know, we did not include a merit increase in the budget this year for our employees because you opted to, thankfully, do the adjustments recommended through the compensation classification study. We do understand in these economic times that it can be difficult when you're used to getting a certain amount every year as a merit bonus to not have that happen. We had $500 budgeted for every department for their holiday bonus. What I'm asking for is to increase that by $500 to a $1,000 holiday bonus for all of the employees, which would essentially even up what a merit bonus would have been at 2%.
If we'd have had time to do the, evaluation process, you would have had to have money in there to pay for that, plus the Christmas bonus. So what you're saying is, since we didn't do
We are
the,
performing well, as you've heard tonight,
must be.
the auditors.
We've got a little bit of money, it sounds like, so.
Part of that, the majority of that is the employees being so cognizant and so conscious of expenditures and watching their bottom lines. And yes, we're blessed that we've gotten extra sales tax and extra money on our investments, but it's because the staff take care of everything they need to on a daily basis.
Get all the money in the world, but if you don't watch what you're spending it on, it's not gonna do you much good.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, Mr. Lewis, to approve the recommendation of the town manager for the Christmas bonus. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second, discussion.
I do want to point out that my little badge says that I'm an employee.
Inflation is tough on council members too.
Town board members will receive the same pay they got this year.
And 10 years ago.
And the same 10 years ago, so we don't change that. All right, we had a motion, a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries.
Merry Christmas.
That was a really good strategy doing that on the night of the audit so that, you know, we know we're okay.
Holiday bonus.
While we're doing that, I'm gonna take a little bit of liberty here to bring something to your attention. Our town manager, as she keeps you updated, was accepted into a program put on by the local government and federal employees credit union. And I have some notes here so I don't get off track too bad. On October the 13th, Amanda Owens completed the Leading for Results course at the School of Government at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Amanda was chosen to participate as a 2023 Local Government Federal Credit Union Civic Fellow. Fellows were selected through a competitive process. There were 170 applicants, of which only 25 were chosen. They didn't put that in the letter, I added that to myself. Across the state for the Fellows Program, selection for the program was based on the identification of emerging leaders in local government and the quality of the applicants. This program focuses on organizational leadership. Participants were introduced to models of leadership as well as management and leadership tools and strategies. Fellows had the opportunity to gain insight into their individual leadership styles and strengths, practice critical leadership behaviors, and work with individual coaches on ways to increase their effectiveness within their organizations. Amanda participated in the first course offered for the 2023 Fellows Program, which was an outstanding cohort of leaders from across the state. Each of the fellows is committed to developing leadership knowledge and skills to help his or her organization and community. Please join me in congratulating Amanda on being selected as a local government Federal Credit Union Civic Fellow and completing this intensive program.
Yay.
I can't breathe.
You don't see her blush very often, do you? Okay. Moving right along, we have a report from our attorney considering approval of a new agreement with Hendon Tiller.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Attorney.
Just an amendment of an existing agreement. I brought the council's attention last month that we had a request from Hendon Tiller, the developer at the Chick-fil-A and so forth, Aspen Dental, and that area where you had previously already extended the economic development loan to go again essentially on the 2-year payments with another balloon at the end of it. We discussed a bump in the interest rate, and reviewing that before I reached out to them, I reminded myself that you really can't make those loans without it being at the market rate, because you can't, you'd be making a gift of public money to go give somebody a deal. So in having discussed that with them, the prime rate is right around 8.5%. So we'll pay for a teeny tiny part of those Christmas bonuses, and this resolution, we don't quite have the paperwork all sewn up, but this, if you'll approve this, it authorizes us to go back again with a renewed 2-year monthly payment term now at 8.5% with a balloon at the end of that. So that's essentially what that's for. And if you, unless you have any questions, just a motion to adopt the resolution.
Question. I missed the previous discussion. My apologies.
And you have to be here.
Why? I'm making up for it tonight. Why was there not a due on sale clause? Because they've already sold a couple of properties to the tune of a few $1 million.
We substituted collateral when they did sell and just got out of the way of, I mean, it kept, so, I don't know if you recall that, but we allowed them to essentially swap which parcels we were holding as.
Well, we held the whole thing at one time.
A second.
Yeah, as a second mortgage.
And now we're the first?
No.
We're still the second.
Yeah, both of you have been a second. You can't foreclose on a second.
I know that, but now we have a second on less property.
But less,
Yeah, less property, but not much less valuable. I mean, when we discussed it, we were, and I'm comfortable still that you've got there's plenty of room there for your security.
I'm not either, but I'm leading up to the next statement I'm gonna make. I mean, are they not embarrassed coming to us asking to extend this?
Didn't sound like
They
it.
don't know anything about it.
They what?
They claimed they didn't know that there was a balloon.
They claimed they didn't know there was a balloon.
I don't know. I mean, I think that the way that, when I was talking about it with Mark Tiller the other day, what he said was, you know, they're still in the midst of developing the rest of it out, and it would be helpful to that development to be able to extend the term a little bit longer. Now, as long as they do that at an interest rate that I think you can,
And I don't think we're getting hurt. I'm just, I mean, I thought it was a stretch that we had to do it to begin with. We did what we had to do as a board with some creativity. But if I'm them, I'm embarrassed to come back to us considering they've sold property that makes up a substantial part of our entire yearly budget. And I don't know. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth as far as economic incentives for the future, because, I mean, we're getting steamrolled by guys in fancy suits. And I don't know. It leaves a distaste in my mouth.
And we're going from 5% to 8.5%.
yes, sir. I don't know that you're getting steamrolled. I think you're continuing to facilitate development. And if you got that taste from
But we're facilitating to people that no longer need facilitation. I mean, if we're honest, I mean, there's no reason for them to do us like that.
Well, if he hadn't done that in the first place, there wouldn't be a Chick-fil-A, but there would be a tar and feather party for us.
Well, but that's what they said. I mean, that it wouldn't have happened, so we don't know. But we did what we had to do.
We did what we had to do. The Phil's facility there is growing. There's a lot of potential out there. It's worth more money now than it was before, I believe. So they're asking for, or we've said a 2-year extension, and the rate's going from 5% to 8.5%.
Yes.
And
And they pay it on a monthly basis.
Yes.
add in bold at the bottom that it is a balloon, if you would, so that, maybe even have an extra signature line that this is a balloon payment sign.
If it's 8.5%, I don't care if it ever balloons.
Yeah, so if you operate that way, you'd be on a credit card company and you'd just be making all kinds of money. Anyway, that's the recommendation from our attorney. Is there a motion concerning the recommendation?
Already made one.
We have a motion, did we have a second?
No.
So we need a second then.
Second.
We have a second. Motion second, any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We'd like to do some departmental updates now, and first of all, our Public Works Director, about the best one that I know of, it would come forward and give us a Public Works update.
Thank you, Mayor, Town Council. As I do every quarter that I stand up here, I want to first say thank you to all my frontline supervisors and ORCs that are under me. Jim Zilbauer, Chris Green, Jason Hopkins, Kyle Boquette, and Chris Walker. And I always forget this one person, and it's not on purpose, but I'd like to also thank Nina Dykes for the work that she does under me, and she keeps me in line on a lot of things, and I really do appreciate her work that she does for me. And like I said, sometimes I forget to mention her, but I did not want to do that tonight, so she's included in this. So as you guys know, we're working on getting CDL drivers for us. We had 3 complete the coursework. We've now had 1 that's been able to get his permit, so we're working towards getting a full license for him. We're also got Clyde Street water line going on right now, so if any of you guys have not heard about that, you should be seeing some pictures come through as updates. The contractors, Buckeye Bridge has been up there since the 16th of October. We're making progress down Clyde Street right now, so as they're going down Clyde Street, they're also making the service taps for each resident down Clyde Street and Watauga Street. So that's moving right along. The Buckeye Bridge has been really good to work with so far. And also too, I know this has already passed, but my apologies for not being at the statue site for open house or groundbreaking. We've been able to be there, but all power has been completed, and you guys know that. But we worked with Duke Energy on getting that pump house rewired in, so everything there is good to go. Also, Boyd's Pump Station, we've had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor that's going to be taking that project on. So they've been having some supply issues, so they're starting to get some of that stuff in. Some other things have been started out there. Some of the electrical work's already been started, but that will be coming up pretty soon, starting that. So be mindful of that. And also, we've had to make several repairs to some water lines within the town, and we started working on some utility cut patches this week and some last month. We try to hit those as soon as we can. So some of those are being done. Also, too, with this new federal law with lead and copper, I'd like to say thanks to Chris Green and Aaron Fosler for starting to work on that. They've been working on it for a while, but we've started taking full days to get this implemented, and it must be completed by October 2024. Also, too, we've been working on, with the help of the manager, we've been working on some water loss and recovery. We were able to purchase a piece of equipment that will help us locate water leaks within the system. You hook it up, you can listen in the ground, it will pinpoint it where it's at. So I'm really appreciative of you guys for approving that in our budget. We have now purchased that and had some training on it. Look forward to using it. Also, too, we've employed a better system to help us with water loss percentage. Not a lot of people think about this, but with the drought that we're in right now, we've been thinking about how to reduce our percentage loss. And even with our water program that we have to report to the state, there was some places that were being neglected as far as water loss. With our tanks and our system, when we drain those for cleaning and maintenance, we never really counted those as water that we knew where it went to. So you start draining a 500,000 gallon tank, that adds up. Then you do a 300,000 gallon tank, before long you have 1 million gallons of water gone. We've also started implementing a little bit better on fire hydrant bulk water usage. So a lot of those sometimes would fall through the cracks, but we're able to account for that. We just updated timers at Hemlock Tank. This is another part of this. If you weren't familiar with our old timers for the tank up there, they were the dial, you just set them, you rotate them, kind of like a clock watch. Well, sometimes it didn't go off. So we would find water running off the hill from Hemlock. We've now updated those with new digital timers, and it hasn't run over yet. So we're making progress on some of those issues as well. So, and also too, with the lead and copper rule, we were able to purchase a GPS, handheld GPS, and we're starting to map all of our meters. And we'll soon do some valves too, but I'd like to thank Justin Setzer for helping my guys on that. We've been out there putting this GPS on every meter, and he's able to put it on our GIS system. So it's been a really great working with them on that. And also too, we just updated our NC 811. If you're not familiar with 811, it's where they call in for locates for our utilities. It used to be in a grid system, but now with the help of Justin, he's sent them our shape files, and we're all on polygons now. So you can isolate where they're wanting to do these digs and stuff like that a whole lot easier. Makes my guys a lot easier locating these things. And also too, since we last spoke, we did have our mission SCADA system has been installed on all sewer systems, sewer pump stations. So I just want to say that there's a lot going on within my departments, and I do appreciate y'all's support of me and my crews. So I didn't want to bore you with the report that you normally get, so this is something a little bit different, but as you can hear, in 3 months' time, there's a lot of stuff takes place.
Yes.
Good job. Thank you, Bill. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I'd like to ask Kyle Skip to come forward for water treatment and let us know what's happening in that area. The public speaking is one of his favorite things to do, isn't it, Kyle?
Yes, it is. I'm still getting the hang of all this. I do want to thank Bill Dill and all of the distribution crew. For a little while, it's been hard making water. But we can definitely tell that they've been out fixing leaks, and communication with us is a big thing. That has completely changed how things work. Anytime there's an issue, they reach out and let us know what's going on, and it helps the operators out. We recently completed some bore sites for our plant upgrade. We're hoping we can get that moving on because that's definitely a need. All the operators have been painting, cleaning, get ready for cold weather because they don't want to be outside working in the cold weather. We had some basins that we're going to be getting ready to clean. We had a raw water vault sucked out, and so we were shut down for a few hours. But that's really it on the water plant side. Cross connection, we're coming in quite a bit. We have about 350 of them completed so far for our December 15th deadline, and there's probably 60 or so that's on my desk for applications to be put in. It's a work in progress. I can't complain. Something.
Anybody have any questions for Kyle?
No, good report.
Good job. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Mr. Jason Hopkins, if you'll come forward, when you turn the spigot on and the water goes down the drain, you ever wonder what happens to it? This is the guy who can tell you what happens to it after it leaves your house.
You'll have to come down to the plant to see the real stars to show that's the microbial organisms.
And you get free
We
samples at
just
the
keep
end.
them alive. We make brownies for you. We make brownies about once or twice a week. Waste them at the landfill. So if you want some brownies, come down. The landfill gets them all.
Ugh.
Bore you with a few numbers real quick. We treated 70.5 million gallons between July and September. Took 313 tons of our brownies to the landfill. Just to touch on that, we have a deal with the landfill with leachate and our sludge. We save county and city taxpayers combined probably $250,000 with this deal. A lot of places have to pay for their sludge to be taken away and their leachate to be treated. We actually have a deal with the county. So that actually saves taxpayers probably close to $250,000. Something to be proud of there. BOD, which is basically just the oxygen our water takes away from the water when you have fish kills. A lot of times BOD is what does it. It's not chlorine, it's not fecal. A lot of times it's just taking oxygen out. We're 2.9 parts per million. We're allowed 30 by the state, so well below our limits. 99.2% efficiency removal. The state requires 85%. So again, well above where the state wants us to be. Every month we go out and do grease traps. Jake and our new guy Cody go out and inspect the grease traps. That's part of my pre-treatment. duties as pre-treatment coordinator here, protecting the distribution and collection lines from grease buildup, and you know what happens when grease builds up in a line, it's very costly for the taxpayer, so. We got our backflow preventer installed. Thank you, Mr. Deal and your guys, Kyle, for your input. We've been cutting trees and brush around the plant just to make it look pretty. STEM, we are poster child for STEM. A lot of y'all know what STEM is. We are probably one of the few occupations in the country that use all four pretty much on a daily basis. So we have class tours. We've actually had 9 class tours just in the last 2 weeks. 8 from MVI and 1 from SEC, Early College and Southwestern. They're all very impressed with what we do there. They always like it, and so it's way different than what they expected. So our new guy went to grade 1 school, so he's getting started with his career. He'll test in December. Mr. Allen got his maintenance, and Jake topped out his grade 4. That's as high as you can go in wastewater. Now it's on to other avenues, probably lab for Jake, because Mr. Allen will be retiring soon. And we're trying to fit 28 years of knowledge into somebody's head before he decides to retire. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. I'll have to say.
Get some brownies, $3.99 Sierra.
Yeah, that's good. I'll have to say this. I was serving as the county manager when we sited and permitted that landfill. And one of the reasons it was an ideal site is exactly what you said, because it was right beside the wastewater treatment plant. Do you know how many counties in this state would love to have that connection with a sewer plant? Now, I left here, went to Haywood County, we did the same thing over there, except all the leachate, as you call it, had to be collected and transported 18 miles back to Waynesville to go through the sewer treatment plant. So we're very fortunate, and it's a good relationship between the county and the town on serving the citizens and saving money at the same time, so.
Silva's actually having to take their sludge all the way to Georgia right now.
Yeah.
All the way to Georgia, so you can imagine the cost that is to Silva.
Amazing,
So,
yeah. Thank you for the good job.
congratulations, Amy. Well deserved. Well deserved. So.
Jason also is our representative to the Southwestern Commission on that particular project
Good.
about the leachate and.
Great.
Super. Good representative, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And now, last but certainly not least, Mr. Chris Waldrop is going to come and tell us about our streets. Chris?
Mayor, Town Council, thank y'all for having me this evening. Couple of updates from streets. Last Friday, we were able to clean out all of our fall decorations because it's time to switch gears and switch over to Christmas time already.
Yeah, all you gotta do is look in my house to tell that.
It's happened, it's happened. I want to thank Public Works, Fire Department, Police Department for coming out, and administration for coming down and helping us change out. I believe we come up with a total around about 2,200 bulbs on our snowflake displays, which is an immense help. The more hands you can throw at that, the better. It took all hands on deck to get that done. So I thank all those departments for that. Those started going out today. That'll continue through this week. And kind of this tentative schedule is next week, get through Veterans Day. Gazebo 10 will come down, tree will go up first of the week, and then all the rest of the gazebo decorations will follow through the end of next week, the 3 days into Thanksgiving week, and then everything will be finished up and we'll be ready for Winter Wonderland on the 25th. So it'll be just a go, go, go for the next 10 days or so. But we doing it for several years now with the same people. We've got kind of a routine that we do, so it's not as big a headache as it normally is. As long as everything works and plug it in and good to go, we'll be fine.
So how many light bulbs had to be replaced on our snowflakes?
2,200.
2,200.
Each snowflake contains, and they're C7, so they're the smaller bulbs. Each snowflake contains 90 bulbs. Now, not all of them were out, but a majority of them were. They do, but they're expensive. They're expensive. We've looked into that. They last longer, but it's one of those, just can't quite get that cost to come in where it needs to be just yet. And to replace the full fixture, they're anywhere from, depending on the size, they're $600, $800, $900, depending on what you get. So it's hard to just, we'll just put new ones that have LEDs. That's a tough pill to get into as well. So we've, now that fall's finally gotten here, leaf tickets are starting to pick up. We have 4 incoming leaf tickets already on my desk, ready to be completed. Once we get those completed, we'll start our process of coming through the areas with just routine leaf vacuuming of our ditch lines and things like that. So we'll see a leaf vac truck out now, in between decorations, starting to get a handle on some of those things. We're still working on, we started a sidewalk replacement project on Short Maple Street between Palmer and West Main. That's in the final stages right now. Once that gets finalized, I'll send some pictures to Manager Owens and she'll share those with you. I've got a couple of good befores and afters that we can really see. Shouldn't be too long on getting that one finished up, and then we'll get a plan for where the next steps are. That's all I have for streets right now. It's just gonna be decoration time for the next 2 days, 10 days or so. Then we'll move into leaf vac. It's kind of where we're at now. No rain, grass isn't growing, weather's still cooperating, but we're able to keep that under control.
The street lights, how long are they on through the night? Or they just stay on? Would it be any good to put them on timer till they go off at midnight or something?
It costs us more to buy the timers.
A lot of bulbs. Timers are cheap.
It's like $7 a month for this.
For all of them?
No.
Okay.
$7 a month for the electricity?
Yeah.
But the bulb replacement, anyway.
Well, we got them for free this year, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris, I know this is in your area, but the question I'm getting the most these days is about the Main Street with those bump outs. I mean, is that that's DOT?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a DOT project.
Justice, do you want the update?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Santa Claus will be proud this year. Justin and Frank, could you all come up and give us a short update on the demolitions that we talked about last board meeting?
The bump outs and everything that Ms. Salane asked about, they're working on those currently. That is with DOT, but it is part of the suggestions that we had about moving some of the crosswalks so that it wasn't like playing Frogger as you were going across the city. So, Justin, anything you have?
Yeah, so you might notice when they obviously removing, the crosswalk here right in front of Town Hall, the angled one, that one's gonna be going away. It's being moved to the entrance to the lower parking lot, which I think will be better, for sight. You've got the entrance of the roads in our driveways, people will be able to be seen in the crosswalk sooner. By federal law, they have to be no cars parked within 25 feet of a crosswalk. Hence why the crosswalk in front of Wells Fargo, you'll notice we have lost a parking spot.
Oh, yeah,
There's
I've heard.
one on either side, but since we were losing it, knew we were gonna lose it, took the opportunity to add a big area, so we'll have some green space there. Right, once it's done, we'll just fill it with dirt for the winter, in the spring, we'll plant some flowers, stuff that doesn't get too big, it's gonna block anything. But me and Bill and Chris were discussing, we're gonna meet later this week to come up with a plan to move some parking around, and got a plan to potentially get all our 2 spaces we lose, and potentially hopefully maybe add 1 or 2 and a loading zone on this end. So I think it'll be better. Move some handicap stuff. You'll probably not see much handicap on this side for parallel, because you're not supposed to have them unless you have a 6-foot landing zone that's flat, so unloading handicap into a lane or out the rear, nobody gets out the rear of the car. Never seen anybody traveling in the trunk. So you'll see some stuff moved, so like the handicap spot that we're gonna lose at the alley, the plan is to move it on the other side of the crosswalk, and it'll actually they're not gonna do on the down street side of that, you're not gonna see a big bulb out right there because traffic's one way. So that's the plan for those. And they still got one more to do down at Lazy Hiker. And DOT is still discussing on, I think, the proper placement of it.
Okay, thank you.
Jack? I'll let Frank, Frank's got some
Demolition.
pictures.
Yeah.
I'll let you pick up the one you got. Frank will give you an update on the house, the things that have happened since we were here last.
They've started the demolition on the house. Right now, their current plan is to leave the existing main structure, which is what you see on the pictures. They still seem to think that the house can be saved and rebuilt. That's their plan. They've removed the front porch and all of the non-original additions. They still need to clean up the property. Went out there today and got these pictures. It looks like the main structure has been boarded up to where we shouldn't have to be concerned with vagrants getting in. Still a couple of windows they can climb through, but they're gonna have to be very resourceful if they do that. But it's a big improvement to what it was last month.
Absolutely.
So where does that leave us?
That's up to you, ma'am. We can give them more time, see what other progress that they can make, or we can go ahead with the demolition.
So have we done the legal work on it, or?
We did.
Yeah, well, you passed the ordinance,
We
you,
needed to do to be able to enforce the ordinance, but I mean, I would, I imagine the direction of the council is gonna be if they're actually making progress on potentially,
well, the other one is the one that was before this was on Wilkie Street, and I guess that's the one, if you're gonna go in order, we need to be looking at that one.
Yes, sir.
So, y'all need direction from us on what to do here? Or no?
As was left last time, until it fully complies, we can still move forward with our order, and busted windows and open windows is not fully complying.
At present, the structure is still non-compliant with minimum.
Have y'all
housing
talked to the
standards.
owners? Have you talked to the owner about what they intend to do?
When I visited the property on the
Yeah.
26th of October, yes, I spoke to both brothers.
Did they give you any indication what else they were gonna do to it or anything?
Their intention is to refurbish the main structure, no timeline specified. In fact, I think the letter that you received was the only really official correspondence we've had where they asked for an additional 6 months.
And that was before we voted, actually,
Yes,
too.
ma'am.
Yeah.
But we don't have, there's not tracos lined up with diesels cranked to tear the thing down,
We've
so I
got
mean.
another house to tear down before we tear this one down, don't we?
On Wilkie
Okay.
Street, yeah.
Yes.
But weren't you waiting to try to get a price on both? I mean, we could get the price and just start the Wilkie Street.
That was it last one, nothing had happened, that was what we talked about.
Oh, okay.
We would just do both, but now some stuff is happening. There's a for sale sign on the property.
It's in the works, you have the authorization to do what you need to do, it's just a matter of finding out how much it's gonna cost and when it could be done if the board decides to award a contract for demolition, right?
How
I thought we
much,
already did.
yeah, how much did they have to probably spend to get it to where it's right now?
I
Not much.
We don't have any figures on that.
No, but was it a whole lot of work or just cleanup work?
It was. a
Anytime you run heavy
substantial amount of
equipment,
work.
it's
They removed-
expensive.
They removed
Thousands
the
of
front
dollars.
porch, which was the entire length of the house, and 2 additions.
And it's all piled up there still in the
Yes.
yard.
Does the landowner on Wilkie know that we're going forward with that?
I haven't spoke to her recently. I mean, she knew that was the case when we were at the end, a year ago or whatever. But haven't talked to her since. She had it for sale for a little while, and that was a little bit of the reason. I was hoping maybe she'd just sell it and somebody get it and they'd address it. And then she never sold it.
I mean, we should probably let them know
We'll
before we start to tear it down. And I don't know if you need direction from us on this or not, but I would guess if it is being actively cleaned up, then we don't need to hire a company, but if it's not in compliance and not being actively cleaned up, then you have the order that you're supposed to do.
But we could get a bid from the tear down company for the Wilkie Street as well as this one. That doesn't mean that we have to award the money to tear this one down, but we'd,
Well, so I think when you adopted the ordinance that you needed to, that gives the authorization to move ahead with enforcement, the intent was to go in, because you don't have this in-house, to go and advertise for bids. If you're, and I think your manager's authority under your existing policies has been up to $30,000 for contracting purposes. So she can enter into a contract on the town's behalf and make one of those happen, and they may well be less than that. If it's more than that, then the policy is come here. I have to say, I think that's more, that strikes me as a significant amount of effort to come into compliance, and something that's worth seeing if it does. I mean, that seems like, to me, like a substantial investment.
Yeah, our goal is compliance.
Yes.
I mean, we don't really want to tear it down. We will, but our goal is compliance. And so if they're working towards.
If they'd have done this before we had our vote, we probably would have voted not to do it. So.
but a year and a half, I mean, you were working with them for a year and a half, right?
Approximately. On day 90, after the hearing was conducted, we got a phone call saying, hey, we've got a track load coming in next week to do the work. That was 2 months prior. This week, the week of the 26th of October was the first actual work they've done to the property.
The timing's not great, but I will say we have backed off and let properties lie for a couple $100 worth of plywood put up over windows. And this is thousands of dollars.
In case in point, look at the one down on the corner at the Bidwell.
That's exactly right. That ended up being.
How nice that place is, man.
Yeah.
And that's why we may want to contact Wilkie too, is to try to shake that compliance tree.
Well, I'm glad to see some work has been done on that. It looks a lot better than it did before. Thank you. Any more questions for them? Anybody? Thank you both. Next council meeting is December, well, before that, any other items from the council to bring up at this time? If not, then the next council meeting.
You got a couple on this side.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that Sabrina's report this time that the Pumpkin Fest went well, I thought was extremely underreported, that I heard that it was fabulous, that it was much better than went well.
I heard the judging at the pageant was rigged. Just what I heard, you know.
I can verify that's not true.
I was with her in the fifth.
Good, great.
I have a question too.
Yes,
Just an update from the manager. I know in the budget process, we had allocated some money for paving the Greenway Extension Sewer Lawn Access Road. Is that still in the cards? Are we waiting
I
on?
have a meeting actually with Kilder and Jason and everybody on Thursday.
All right. I just haven't brought it up in a while, and I feel like I need to. So thank you.
Good. All right. Anything else? If not, next council meeting will be on December the 4th, and that will be an organizational meeting for the new board that's sworn in at that time. Understand there's an election tomorrow. For those who are interested, we need people to actually vote. There's not been a big turnout this year. I don't know why, but there's not been a big turnout. But anyway, if you haven't already voted and you live in town, please vote. They need that. They need some people out there. Anyway, so we'll have the meeting on December the 4th, which will be the organizational meeting, swearing in day. Town offices will be closed on Friday, November the 10th, which is the official observance of Veterans Day, and that's according to the North Carolina holiday schedule. But on Saturday, the 11th, is officially Veterans Day, and there'll be a Veterans Day celebration here downtown. It starts here at Town Hall at 10:45. Usually they get together, anybody who's a veteran, wear your veteran clothes if you want to, but march to the gazebo. And there'll be a program up there. Mr. Ron Norton will be in charge of the program, and we'll have a presentation of colors by the American Legion VFW Honor Guard. I understand that the Franklin High School band is going to be performing Saturday. Is that right, Sabrina? So we're looking forward to that. And the White Sisters, if you have not heard them sing, you're really missing a treat. They'll be there singing. And so we'll have a guest speaker, Mr. Jerry Wallace, who's commander of the VFW. And so then we'll have the laying of the wreaths and then the rival salute and taps. So if you would, please turn out, support our veterans, our military veterans, for their sacrifices that they and their families have made. And before we go into a closed session, I'd like to say that I'd like to turn and thank Council Member Adam Kimsey. This is his last big official meeting. Thank him for filling out the balance of my term for 2 years. He's been a real good addition to this board, I think, and we're going to miss him being on this board. Wish him the very best of luck. And Mr. Kimsey, I'll give you the opportunity to say anything if you would like.
I appreciate the opportunity to take it, the remainder of your vacancy. I've done well with the opportunity. If I had never worked with my wife, I would say this is the best group of people I've ever worked with. I'm not going to say that. But no, truly, this is, Amy, you've been amazing. All the staff's been amazing, and the board's been a breeze to work with. And I hope you guys continue to be. I think I got a good replacement over there. I think it's going to be fine.
If he gets the votes.
I think we ought to give him a round of applause. What do you think?
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Now, we have item 14, closed session under General Statute 143-318-11, parentheses A, parentheses 5, concerning acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease. Is there a motion that we go into closed session for that purpose?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. Motion second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed by like sign, that motion carries. We will be in closed session. We'll take about a 3-minute break and we'll come back in.
What's on your mind?
You expect a decision?
I don't think so.
That's what you said the last time you did.
You mean the politician told you a story? Oh my goodness.
I'll sandbag it, Bobby, just so there's no decision. How's that?
No, I can't foresee any kind of decision, Bobby. I really can't.
Okay.
It's just a discussion.
You heard him. I'm gonna hold him.
We brought you back in last time there was a decision, didn't we?
Yeah, but I had to tear everything down. That's 15 minutes right there.